Okay. Well, why don't we, am I leading this, I guess?
You are leading this, and I am
Okay.
recording you.
I
So
will facilitate this.
those who are not able to make it will be able to review it on our YouTube site.
Okay. Well, I'd like to just say thank you for the opportunity to do this. And, you know, a couple of years ago, I think I gave the virtual Veterans Day sermon. And I know that Sandy, at least, has been to the witness tree in Wadsworth and experienced that. So I'm glad you're interested. Well, I was told this will be an informational meeting, and we can open it to discussion. But first, I'd like to get a sense as to who is here and why. So if you could just give me your name and your background, if you're a veteran, of what branch, when did you serve? If you're a combat veteran, to let me know that as well. And also the people who are civilians, you're referred to as the people of strong heart. And I'll talk a little bit more about the history of that as we get into this. So why don't we start with you, Sandy, if you could just give us a little sketch. Thank you.
I've always been interested in the military and veterans in particular because my father was a vet, my father-in-law was a vet. My father was in World War II. He was a paratrooper. He jumped into Normandy on D-Day. My father-in-law was in Okinawa. Both of them saw quite a lot of horrific things. My ex-husband was in Vietnam for a year. I'm a member of the Maps Museum, if you're familiar with that, and I've done a few things down there with them. In fact, I donated my father's uniform and some of his memorabilia to the Maps Museum. I just think that veterans are not recognized and helped as much as they should be, and I've kind of always felt that way. That's my story.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, you're gonna have to unmute. If you can do, I think you're at work, but if you have a minute, just introduce yourself to me, and thank you.
All right, my name is Nick. I was a Navy veteran from 2003 to 2012, and then I joined the Air National Guard in Mansfield, and I was medically retired last year.
Okay,
that's my story.
All right. What
Thank
was
you for your service, Nick.
Thank you,
Nick. What did you do in the Navy?
I was an aviation structural mechanic.
Okay, and that's what you did in the Air National Guard?
I was a non-destructive inspector in the Air National Guard.
Okay,
similar though on aircraft. So,
well, welcome home. It's a journey to get back here. So appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I'm guessing there must be some kinship here since you got the same last name.
A little bit. Nick's my husband.
Oh,
so.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah. So I was on the journey with Nick, and pretty much everyone in my family's in the military, either serving or in service. So.
Okay. So you are a person of strong heart. Yeah.
I don't know about that, but okay.
Okay. Well, we will qualify that later on, but yeah, I consider you a person of strong heart. Yeah, you want to tell us about?
So I've not been in the military, but my father served in World War II. He continued to be in the Naval Reserves. He was, and he was buried as a full commander in the Navy. He served in the South Pacific, setting up radio stations on islands after they were captured.
Okay.
I have 3 older brothers, 2 of which served in the military. My oldest brother was a Russian interpreter in Pakistan prior to Vietnam, and my second brother served during Vietnam, but he was a submarine tracker in Bermuda and Newfoundland. So one of the highlights I remember is going to visit my brother in Argentia, Newfoundland, while he was serving. That was a trip of a lifetime. So that's my military involvement.
Wow, well, good. Well, thank you, Gabe. I appreciate that. You're a person of strong heart as well.
Thank you.
As we go on, you'll find out the strong hearts play a key role in a veteran's reentry and acclimation. So, well, I'm John Schluep. As a way of introduction, I never thought I would be in pastoral ministry. When I graduated from Ohio State in 1974, I received a regular Army commission, infantry, and served as an airborne rifle platoon leader for a while. The war in Vietnam was winding down at that time. So I was assigned to the 172nd Arctic Light Infantry, which means we carried everything that we needed in the field. So, and I don't know that I ever jumped out of an airplane, but I got pushed several times out of an airplane. So I appreciate Sandy, paratrooper's spouse being with us.
Daughter.
I'm
Daughter.
I'm sorry, daughter. Yeah, daughter. Yeah, you would be like 99,000
Yes.
years old. Yeah, pretty close.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah,
But I
let me-
have
let me
had.
just tell you this, my father was afraid of heights and he was pushed quite often as well.
Yeah. We've got all kinds of war stories and lies about that. But yeah, I've known several of those guys that jumped at Normandy or were at the invasion. So anyway, I finished up my tour of duty. I'd planned on being in the Army for about 30 years and finished up my tour of duty with the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. They are the ones that have the responsibility of the Tomb of the Unknown and all the ceremonial things. And the
Oh, there's an interesting aside, John. Becky, don't you have relatives there in that service?
I mean, I have my brother-in-law stationed in Alexandria.
Oh yeah.
Well, not in Alexandria, but Langley.
But didn't he do
Oh,
one?
Oh yeah, he was in, I don't know, USA Today or the Post or something
Okay.
this year for that event. He was one of the 4 there.
Oh,
He just made, I don't know, Nick. I don't know Air Force very well. I should, because Nick was in it for a while, but
okay.
I don't know. He just made whatever chief or whatever. I don't know.
Okay. All right. He's okay. That's good. That's impressive. Yeah. So I served with the Old Guard in DC for about 14 months and then felt called to ministry, and I didn't know what that was. I described the call to ministry, and I'll be very graphic about it. It's like throwing up. You don't want to do it. You put it off. You don't know what's happening to you, but you know that if you just kind of forget about it, it'll go away. Well, it doesn't go away. So after months of consideration, I wasn't exactly going to church, and I never considered myself to be a religious person. So, but I ended up resigning my commission and going to graduate seminary, and so that's kind of my background. In the year 2001, I became a senior pastor of First Congregational Church of Talmadge, and a friend of mine from the church asked if I would speak with one of his cohorts that he had met through the VA, who was at My Lai. For those who may need a little refresher on the My Lai massacre, it happened in March of March, I believe, 1968. And William Calley was the officer in charge of the sweeping of the My Lai village. And they ended up murdering women, children, and elderly. And this young man at the age of 19 was operating the machine gun at the ditch where 173 persons were murdered. He couldn't shake the demons, and his VA psychiatrist said, "We've done everything we can for you." Of course, they were treating it as post-traumatic stress, and he'd given up his relationship with God, with the Creator, with anything spiritual. But his psychiatrist said, you need to talk to somebody who's religious. And I guess I kind of fit the bill as close as possible because of being a pastor, but also a veteran. And we had a good conversation for over 2 hours. And when he left my office, I said, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you. I'm not going to offer you a platitude or, Jesus loves you. It's just, that just seems so hollow. Edward Abbey said that sentiment without action is the ruin of the soul. And I believe that to be true. I couldn't help this guy with anything. But as he left, he and his wife left. I said, Dave, I want you to know that I will walk through hell with you. That made a difference for him, to have a companion to go through with him, even though I'd never experienced anything like that. I'm not a combat veteran. I served during the tail end of Vietnam, but I never served in a combat unit. But most of the men that I served with, and I say men because I was in the infantry, were all Vietnam veterans. And that's a weird place to be, coming in from a university and getting commissioned, and all of a sudden you're in charge of 44 vets from Vietnam who'd served with the 25th Infantry Division. So over the course of the next several years, I began research into warrior cultures, and I could not fathom why the faith communities were not providing any type of soul repair or healing for veterans. It seemed to me there was either a church or denomination that was all pacifists, and veterans did not feel comfortable, like they had an indelible mark on their soul, or it was a faith community that was so patriotic that there was no boundary between the separation of church and state. If you were going to be a good patriot, you had to be a good Christian. You had to be a good Christian, you had to be a good patriot, which meant blind allegiance and loyalty. So I rejected both of those scenarios, and did work in theology and spirituality, and I began to research warrior cultures, and discovered that we do a really crappy job of bringing veterans home. We've abdicated our responsibility to the VA, to the trauma centers, to law enforcement, to anybody else, rather than us. So anyway, as I was doing the research, I found out I was not alone. There were other people doing research. Jonathan Shea at the Boston VA, who's a psychiatrist, and is a veteran also, but he medical doctor and psychiatrist, and I think he's got a PhD in psychology as well. He coined the term the moral injury, and that resonated with me. I didn't have anything to name it, and now that you name it, now you can kind of get some flesh around the bones. And it seemed to me that the attitudes of forgiveness, restitution, reconciliation, confession, those were all words that resonated within a faith community. And then I started reading other books on spirituality and talking to other people about it. And I found that there were three things, and this comes from a book called The Healing Wisdom of Africa. And it has to do with, for a person to be well, they need to have a community, they need to have a ritual, and they need to have healing. And if we decide to move in the direction of this, I'm telling you right now, it's going to change your theology.
Sorry, go ahead.
Fine, it'll change your theology. It'll change you begin to question pretty much Western Roman Christianity, which is not a bad thing, in my opinion. So that's what we do at Warriors Journey Home. We create a community, we have ritual, and we have healing. And the healing is a challenge because it involves confession, it involves making restitution, it involves the community carrying some of that responsibility for what was done on their behalf. And so you can't expect a veteran to come home who had experienced what they've experienced and carry that by themselves, especially when it involves a moral injury. And I'm going to stop right here and see if there's any comments or questions, and then I'll move into how we do this and what we do, and just kind of find out where you are, just touching base. So just go ahead, anybody just jump in.
Well, I like that you said that the young man that was at My Lai, you said you told him you would walk through hell with him. I am assuming that that's probably the most important thing of this ministry, if you will, that you connect with someone. And I might be wrong, and you're going to tell us, but is that, you said that was what resonated with him?
Yes, it did. It did. And it's being a companion, but then also having some of the insight and skill to know where to go with that. Kind of a mentorship type of thing as well. So that's where we build on some of the older veterans assuming that mantle of mentorship and helping the younger vets come home, because there will come a time when the younger vets are going to need to become mentors. And they have a new mission and a purpose. And that's one of the things that people miss when they leave the military, is there's no purpose or meaning for my life. There's a huge adrenaline rush when you're jumping out of an airplane, or you're firing weapons, or it's not just a life or death situation, a kill or be killed situation. And it's hard for civilians, the strong hearts, to get their head around that. So, anyway. Anything else?
I have a comment and a question. My comment is, this walking through hell resonates with me in my Stephen Leader training, of the importance of just being an active listener without prescription. My question is, you said that this may result in questioning our Western form of Christianity, and I was wondering if you could say just a little more about that.
Yeah, I can. The Doctrine of Original Sin is one place to start, that we are born damaged goods. Why Western Christianity predominantly begins interpreting the Bible with the 3rd chapter of Genesis, which talks about the fall, instead of the 1st and 2nd chapter, which God sees everything as good.
Agreed.
So when I'm meeting with vets and with strong hearts, and we're in our healing circles of trust, or we're doing some deeper prayer purification work, I let them know that they are not sacred because of the church they belong to or don't belong to. They're not sacred because they've been baptized. They're not sacred because they took Holy Communion. You are sacred because you were born, period. Because you are created out of the same stuff, and God is in everything. So when we walk through the forest, or we walk outside, if we're downtown, and it's everything has a divine spirit within it. And in large part, when I was growing up, I grew up Roman Catholic. I always felt I was born in an adversarial relationship with God. It's like, I've got this original sin. Yeah, I didn't do anything, you know, but I had to go to confession before I could take communion. I was only second grade. How much mischief can you cause, you know? And so, yeah, it's just, it's been part of my personal faith journey. And I understand the doctrines of the church. I understand where it came from. I understand the history of it, perhaps too well. But Western Christianity is the only group that has a doctrine of original sin. Eastern Orthodox Christians don't have original sin. Any other major religion doesn't have original sin. So how did this happen? You know, and we could follow that thread back and get that, but when you look at it, it is woven into the fabric of our society, but baked into our culture, that somehow we're not worthy. And you know, for a 19-year-old at My Lai, it just confirms what he was taught as an Episcopalian Christian. So I can say a lot more about that, but I won't right now. But
well, I appreciate your explanation, and thank you. I try to avoid pressing that button at this church, as I try to avoid it. That's not where we go here. I'm on your same.
It's refreshing for people when they hear that, and then it begins to awaken them that they are better than they thought they were. You know, and a lot of the veterans that I work with personally are looking for something, searching for something, for wholeness and wellness. So the community ritual and healing. Was there any other comment or question? No, otherwise I'll move on. Okay. When I look at the 9th chapter of John's Gospel, that's the story of the man born blind. And John's Gospel is, I love John's Gospel because it's intensely spiritual, but also there's no miracles in John's Gospel. There are only signs, and signs point us in a direction. So it's not something that's beyond capabilities of what we're living in this existence, because I believe if there's going to be hell on earth, we can have heaven on earth. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to usher in, and I think that's what Jesus was trying to awaken people of that time to, was that heaven is on earth. And he says in Luke's gospel, the kingdom of God is within you. You don't have to go looking for it. It's not outside. So it's an awakening, and we can take whatever we've done as a spiritual crisis that can bring a spiritual awakening. So in John's Gospel, the 9th chapter, the man born blind, the disciples asked the question, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus says, well, neither one of them did. Well, that kind of begins to challenge that original sin doctrine. So Jesus, you know, he spits on the ground, makes some mud, puts it on a man's eyes, and says, go wash in a pool of Siloam and present yourself to the religious leaders. So he does that. He's got the ritual, and he has a healing, because after he washes in the pool of Siloam, he can see. However, it's the neighborhood that rejects him. Says, no, this can't be the same guy. That guy was blind. He's not blind now. It can't be. So they go to his parents, and his parents go, hey, well, you don't know. You know, it's I don't know what happened. He was blind, and now he can see. So they take him to the religious authorities, and they begin to question it. It becomes the interrogation by religious authorities as to how did this happen. And so this guy, you know that. So read that story. He gets his shorts in a knot, tells the religious leaders off, and leaves, because he doesn't have a community to belong to. He cannot be well until he has that community. Then he meets Jesus on the road, and Jesus says, you know, what's happening? He goes, this is what's going on. And He says, well, who is the guy? He goes, well, I don't know. I couldn't see him. I don't know who it is. He goes, well, the one who's speaking to you is the guy that healed you. And so I like to think that there's a new community, a new place to belong, a new place to fit. And that begins to resonate with me when I'm working with vets, or when the Warrior's Journey Home is working with vets. It's not the punitive part of our religious faith, where there has to be a sacrificial offering for us to be well and whole and restored to a right relationship. We're always in a right relationship with God. We need to work on being in a right relationship with each other. So the community ritual and healing is what we focus on, and that's tough work. It's tough work, and it does. It involves that having that openness to listen without judgment, without question. And you can train for that. Shelly Rambo from Boston University School of Theology, she's a friend of mine, and she's written several books. And she and I have talked about these issues and about trauma work. And she wrote in her book, what's the name of it? Resurrecting Wounds, about the episode in the gospel of St. Thomas, the Apostle Thomas, and Jesus meeting in the upper room. And Thomas says, you know, I'm not going to believe until I place my hand in the wounds. Now, we've interpreted that belief has to come through that experience. I don't think it's belief at all. I think what Jesus is doing with Thomas and with the other disciples, he invites them to enter the wound. And that's what I found is kind of when I told a guy, I'll walk through hell with you, I was entering his wound. And I'm culpable. And I told him this. I said, because you served, maybe I didn't have to serve in Vietnam. I don't know. But, you know, there's that idea of entering the wound with someone that brings healing to us, begins the act of healing, and allows that wound to be cleansed. To know that you have someone to share that with. And that's an act of intimacy. You know, and the scriptures that we use in our Christian faith are replete with, you know, by his stripes we are healed. The other thing Shelly brings up that I think is interesting is she mentions that in our Western culture, we like redemptive heroes. And that becomes a part of our civil religion, a redemptive hero. And this is what we do with our vets. We bring them home. It didn't happen after Vietnam, but it's happened since then. And it happened prior to Vietnam, where veterans were placed on a pedestal, some kind of hero image. And if you talk to a vet, I haven't met a vet yet who feels like a hero, feels like they did anything courageous. Most the vets I've worked with have been very humble and grounded and said, I didn't do anything. I just did what I had to do. So, you know, you place medals on them and give them accolades. And people say, oh, thank you for your service. You don't know what they did. I talked to a young lady who was an interrogator at Guantanamo Bay, and she was feeling shame for what she had done. You're not going to tell her, thank you for your service, because that will just irritate her. She's not happy with what she did. So that's our Western culture. The Greeks understood that any warrior returning home is a tragic hero, because war is tragedy. There's nothing glorious about it. There's nothing good about it. There is no good outcome from it. It's not going to make us better people. The Greeks understood that our warriors returning home, our veterans returning home are tragic heroes. And we have to accept part of that tragedy. And I think that's a large part of what Jesus did. And I think it's a large part of what the church or any faith community should be doing, is asking for the things like forgiveness and making restitution. And, you know, I've taken 3 groups of veterans to Vietnam who had served in Vietnam, and I've begun taking their family members as well. And we sit with former enemy soldiers and their families and have meals together. We pray together. We pray in our way and they pray in their way, but we offer prayers on behalf of each other. And we know that it's going to the one creator. We sit with former Viet Cong soldiers, and it's scary. It's hard to get there and to do that. But once we get there and we begin that process, there's a kinship that forms between the people. And even though we don't speak the same language and we fought on opposite sides in a war, there's a forgiveness that takes place. So anyway, that's it. And this is what I said. This is not easy work to do, but it's rewarding work to do. And it gives a lot of meaning and purpose. So, you know, so think of our veterans as tragic heroes, and not damaged that they need us to repair them, but that we bear some of that wound ourselves. When Jesus invites Thomas to enter his wound, I think what Jesus is asking us to do is to enter the wounds of the world. I think when Jesus came to earth, God was entering the wound of creation to bring healing. And so there's no separation. It's there's just no separation. So when we're talking with veterans and we're sitting out at Camp Wanakee and we're doing a day-long prayer purification lodge and talking about things that are important to us, there's that kinship that we feel with each other, a kinship that we feel with all creation, with all nature, that there's it's all just part of us, that there's a divine spirit that moves us, and it's not owned by any specific group or people or religion. And so there's that. So what we've developed in Warrior's Journey Home is what we call healing circles of trust. Mm-hmm. And we don't have rules for that. We have agreements. It's very much like a 12-step program. If you show up, everybody knows you got some things you need to talk about. So, and it's compassion. We create a safe environment with these healing circles of trust, and we have a ritual that goes with that, which involves some purification, which involves checking in with each other, which involves prayers that are depends, you know, on where people are in their faith. We try to keep our prayers and everything universal and inclusive. Sometimes we do that well. Sometimes we need a little help with that, but you know, it's okay because everybody knows your heart's in the right place. We've been impacted by COVID, of course, because meeting in person is a problem. So we've developed a protocol for COVID healing circles of trust. We have, I conduct what I call isolation healings of trust. Warrior cultures knew that when a person was coming back from war, they were not fit to be in the community. And so they would keep them outside the community until they went through ritual and spent time with a mentoring shaman, usually a warrior, who knew how to guide them spiritually into some healing. In African tribal systems, it was a minimum of 3 months before a brave could return to the village. in Native American culture, it was a matter of going through sweat lodge, and sometimes burning the clothing that you had worn in battle, and then spend time with a shamanic healer, because taking a life was sacred. Sitting Bull said, no person has the right to take another person's life. That's not what being a warrior is about. Being a warrior is protecting the elderly, protecting the children, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. And that's a different paradigm to work from. So the prayer purification retreat is based on several different traditions, but one is our earth medicine Native American sweat lodge, and then we use a Celtic sweat house protocol as well. Celtic Christianity provides tremendous help for us and insight, and is where I lean toward is more Celtic Christian practices than anything that would look Roman or Eastern. So the day retreat is done once a month, and I'll do the isolation circle, which is veterans only, men vets only, but we have in that group not just the younger vets, but older vets who have gone through some healing. And the bond between those older men and the younger men is incredible. Once they begin to find some healing work, then they can enter into a healing circle of trust that has the people of strong heart. And that involves the spouses, the friends, the sisters, the brothers, the parents, and we have a healing circle of trust for strong hearts only, because they too have their issues they need to deal with, because we've all been impacted by war. Every single person on this Zoom meeting has a connection with somebody that was served in the military. Either you did it yourself or you have family members who did it. And their act of serving in the military impacts that family system. It impacts every institution in our culture. It impacts our schools. So it's not about thinking outside the box. It's making our box bigger. It's saying, yeah, we've got this. And so the isolation circle for me, when I do it, it's 6 sessions. And then I encourage the vets who have gone through the 6 sessions of isolation healing, and they're not alone, we're doing it together, to get involved with a healing circle of trust, because you need to hear the stories of your spouse, what you put that person through, with your service, what your father did, Sandy, what he did and how that impacted him as a father and a husband. Or your husband who served in Vietnam, and that impacts us. And so, and I'll tell you what, I'm moving right along here. Healing circle, we do have training protocol for people who want to be facilitators of healing circles of trust. And we have a support system, albeit sometimes it works very well. Sometimes we could do better. And I'm the kind of guy that I'm happy with what we did, but we can always do better. I'm not satisfied with how we did. So the healing circle of trust usually stays, if we get over 12 people in a healing circle, it's getting too big. You need to have another circle. And I've done circles where we've had 3 circles going on simultaneously at the same place. We have like 36 vets show up and people of strong heart. And this was early on in the ministry itself. The training I do have training. I'm going to send you guys some copies of our training manual and a book
Mhm.
called Soul Cry, and some ritual that we use during worship services. So you can discern and make a good choice for what you want to do.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's if you set this up, we would need to do a timeline on training, and I'm guessing it would be a training that would be perhaps a Zoom classroom because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
There are a couple other faith communities that are interested in Warrior's Journey Home protocol. One of the unique differences with Warrior's Journey Home is we include the people of strong heart. And that's based on that warrior culture, that the civilians knew that they had a responsibility to bring people home. So when this veteran returns home, these people aren't going, "Hey, thank you for your service." No, they're saying, "Welcome home. You've got a job to do now. You got a job, and we appreciate you protected us, but you've got a job to do now, which is to teach us, to lead us, because you know some things we don't know." So that's where that is. We have monthly prayer purification retreats for men only. We do have one now for women only, women veterans only. Women veterans have other issues besides what the men veterans have because of the military sexual assault, military sexual trauma. And for a woman veteran to be in the company of men veterans or men period is sometimes prohibitive to them opening up and talking about what they need to talk. So it's the same as true with men veterans. That's why I sit with men and allow them to just speak freely. The other thing is, when we send our sons and daughters off to war, when they come home, they're going to be talking dirty. So if we have people who can't handle that, they need to stay home on the daily healing circle. They can watch Real Housewives of Los Angeles or something, So what we're doing is very reality based. It's just a tremendous ministry because it affects not just the individual, but the family and the community as well. I don't think we're going to have healing from war until we have healing of the veterans who have served in it and the people of strong heart who have endured this stuff. So we do have training protocol if we want to move forward with this. I think, we set up a timeline. We get some Zoom classes. There may be other people joining us in those classes, which is fine. I've never done a Zoom classroom, so I'm going to have to do my homework. But I have people who help me with that.
I was going to say, I can help you with that. Becky was my right-hand person as we moved into Zoom worship.
Good.
She controlled
Excellent.
the entire ecosphere while I just preached.
No, that's good. I need somebody like that because you put me in front of a computer, it's like handing kryptonite to Superman. It just sucks the life right out of it.
Can I ask two things?
Yeah, ask a question. Yes.
Okay. My first question is a general question that maybe you'll get to later, which is, I understand from just anecdotally from things I've read and things I've watched that one of the hard things for returning vets is the loss of the band of community. Does this healing circle somehow or somewhat give them that sense of having another band of brothers or brothers and sisters in community that they lacked when they came home and felt on their own? Is that part of what you see? And my second question is, how often does the circle meet?
The answer to your first question is yes, it can, and it does. but not for everyone. Some people will say, this is my new unit. They're engaged with it. We are trying to develop some programs to continue that after they find some healing and in their life. So we're putting together a flag football team to play competitively, trying to do some other things and community service oriented type things. They want to give back. Vets want to serve. Vets want to serve. So, and the Healing Circle meets generally twice a month.
Okay.
At a day of the week and a time of the week that is convenient for everyone. We do have people who are meeting live and virtually at the same time. I guess you can buy cameras. Becky may know more about this. You can buy a camera
Oh, yeah.
that's voice activated and follows you around the room or something, which kind of spooky. But anyway, so most of the times twice a month, we have a writing circle. Which is, we have some guys just they don't want to sit around and talk, but they will write. And so they write their memoirs, they write their poetry, and then when they have to read this stuff to each other, now they're talking about it. So we have a retired English teacher that leads that writing group, and he's actually a Vietnam veteran, Marine infantry with 2 Purple Hearts. So anyway, get creative. We are working on creating those community-based programs outside of Warrior Journey. So, in answer to your question, yes and yes. And you do it at your convenience. The People of Strong Hearts Healing Circle of Trust meets on Wednesdays, I think once a month, at North Hill. What is it? North Hill Presbyterian Church in Ellett. And then of course there's a circle that meets, veterans circle that meets in Wadsworth now. And you can be creative. I tell people be creative. And somebody asked me the other day if they could use some of our material, and I said, well, if you're going to be a Warrior's Journey Home Circle, you need to follow our criteria and protocol. But if you find something that's interesting that works for you and you want to use it, go ahead, be my guest. I don't own this stuff. But if you're gonna market yourself as a Warrior's Journey Home Circle, then you need to follow Warrior's Journey Home stuff. So, and we provide materials. I've got some great coffee mugs, lapel pins, keychains, and if you guys want to do a witness tree next November there in Doylestown, I mean that generates all types of interest because it's a public thing. And
is Veterans Day the best day, or you mentioned Memorial Day also?
Well, yeah, Memorial. What we do with Memorial Day is since it's Memorial Day's on usually a 3-day weekend. It's usually during a time of worship. We have done watch fires over that weekend. We'll do something down at Camp Wanakee, perhaps, or somebody has a farm and they want to build a watch fire. We do ritual and ceremony. The Veterans Day is to raise awareness with the civilian community that we're losing 22 people a day. Now people say, well, that sounds like should be Memorial Day. I said, well, okay, so here's the deal. Memorial Day comes at a time of year when people are kind of trying to get on vacation and stuff, So Veterans Day, when you're leading up to November 11th, which Veterans Day is always November 11th. They don't move it. You kind of have an audience that anticipates that. So for 11 days, there's 22 suicides a day from veterans, which is off the charts. And the way they qualify somebody as being a suicide, has to follow a certain protocol. There's actually more than 22 a day, based on my experience, because there's the pseudo-suicidal tendencies. And I refer to those people as killed after action. There's a shame that comes with suicide. My father committed suicide, so I'm not speaking from somebody that's making this stuff up. I've experienced it. The stigma that comes with that is just adding another burden. So when we do a witness tree and we talk about these young men and women who were killed after action, there's a certain stigma that is blunted now. Yeah, you saw this as a result of war and or military service. It may not have been a bullet that killed you or an IED, but it was something that happened that took your life and took it slowly. So yeah, we're not, and it's to raise awareness of the community that we need to be better at bringing our people home and forming that community around them to protect them. That was the unwritten agreement, covenant that warrior cultures had, was you'll go out and protect us, and when you come home, we will protect you. We form a protective perimeter around you and let you heal. And it's that wound that we need to enter and allow that wound to heal. Now, don't force your way into it. You sit with them. You sit with me. You call them up on Memorial Day. You call a vet on Veterans Day and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm thinking of you today. How you doing?" There's a thing called the Alive Day. For Tom, who's our writer, he was wounded in Vietnam in the end of February. So I will call him on February and I'll say, "Tom, just thinking of you on your Alive Day." And he goes, "Thank you so much, man. It means so much to think." So, it's like their born again day. I mean, they faced the elephant, they almost died, and now they're here. So I got several guys that I call on their Alive Day just to check in, and they appreciate it. So yeah, that's important to bring people home. So I mean, statistically, I did work with the St. Thomas Trauma Center. We did some qualitative and quantitative data to find out why this works. And we didn't have a large group to work with, but it gave us a trajectory and that. So, we're not psychologists, we're not psychiatrists, we're not trauma counselors. We're people just being people. And we reinforce that. We're not gonna try to fix anybody. We're just gonna walk with you through this, and for as long as it takes. So yeah, I don't know what else to tell you here. I mean, there's a lot of other technical things that we could get into, but I gave you a little bit of the history and
Right.
what you do, and what's available. So
Okay, so I'm thinking next step, you're going to send us, you said several copies of your book, and you said you had some training guide material.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to post this video and offer and try to get some others to take a look at this training session that may not have been able to be here or be aware at this time. And then it sounds like you may be at some point in the future, upcoming future, thinking about putting together a timeline with us and maybe other communities that
Yes.
might want to take Zoom training class.
Yes, exactly. And I'd come up with a schedule as to, we don't have to do, I think the training you've done in the past lasts between 16 and 20 hours.
Okay.
So, if you're a Stephen ministry, you know what that's like.
I do.
So, yeah, we divide it up. Say, hey, this is when we're going to be meeting. and probably have it recorded so that if you can't make that meeting, you know, have it available.
Let me ask you if you've ever considered, for those of us who are strong hearts, is that right? Brave, strong
Yeah,
hearts?
strong heart.
That are considering entering into leadership. Have you ever considered having a cleansing circle for those who will not have an opportunity to ever experience such a thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things we do with our facilitators and strong hearts. We do have strong hearts attend our monthly purification retreat, but I advertise it that way so that you know,
Others
if I have
know.
a vet who says, "Oh, I'm not ready to be in a company," I go, "Okay, all right."
Yeah.
And I will do a gender mix and veteran, non-veteran mix, Strong Hearts Purification Lodge.
Yeah. I think it
is
would be
a-
helpful just to understand that.
Yeah, in fact, I've taken people to Camp Wanakee, which wouldn't be too far from where you guys are.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, and just gave them the setting and let them see it, walk around. I explained what goes on inside the lodge, you know, why the lodge is the way the lodge is, and they find that very educating. In fact, if we, you know, when we move through here and we get a class together, we would probably take one day and go there to just experience that lodge.
Right.
We wouldn't have to go into it, just let you see what it's like
Great.
and why it works. So
Okay.
it's one of the oldest forms of purification and cleansing in history.
Right there.
Yep. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Becky.
Becky.
Hey, thanks for all the information. The lot, obviously a lot that you do. But where I'm trying to understand is, do you have like an outline of the program maybe? And like what those like key, like just like a quick description of what that program is. And because I'm trying to think of how our church can help support or be a part of it. So maybe also in that, like where we could actually be of service. Like, is it not just, but is it the meetings? Is it having the meetings at Emmanuel? Going to meetings, having the tree, like where we can be of service as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Becky, you go by Becky or Rebecca?
Becky.
Yeah,
Becky. You were going to say, I cut you off, Gay.
That's all right. I didn't want to cut you off. I answered a little too quickly. We are considering being a host site for healing circles as well as other events.
Okay.
So
All
the
right,
training,
yeah.
sorry. So that training would be for those meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
I think from my experience, when I started, when Warrior's Journey Home started at First Congregational Church Talmadge, it was 3 years before the executive board voted to have that as a ministry of the church. But we were meeting there, and a lot of the people involved were church members, but we also had probably half the group was coming from outside the church to participate in it. It was like an AA group using our space.
Right.
So what happened in 2006 was the executive committee or executive board voted to include Warrior's Journey Home as a ministry of the First Congregational Church of Talmadge, which then they put a line item in the budget. It had to give a report at the monthly meetings, and there was some ownership of it by the people of the church, which I found to be a tremendous help. It just kind of infected the congregation then that, hey, this is something that we support and we're a part of it. So Becky, I think that's a great insight and comment. And, you know, the more education we have, the more acceptable it is. So yeah, other churches have the ministry, but they don't have the buy-in from their executive committees. And so it's kind of a standalone thing. But, you know, people identify with it. I'll meet their church members in public and they'll go, oh, our church is doing veterans ministry now. And it's so cool. You know, we're so happy. Well, what are you doing? He goes, well, we don't know what we're doing. We just know we have it. So I said, okay, but there, you know, there's they feel good about that. Does that answer your question, Becky?
Yeah, no, it does. I was just trying to align what your big, you know, you have this big program. It seems really overwhelming, but if we're breaking it down into what we can do to help, you know, it's yeah. Thanks.
I think that if there were core leadership of your congregation, my experience has been that pastors are overworked, and I would like to say underpaid. I think your budget's probably already set for 2022.
Yeah, it
anyway,
is.
Overworked. But anyway, the past.
Uh-oh, you froze.
I'm froze.
No, you're good now.
Okay, now.
Okay. All right. It says my internet connection is unstable. No, I'm unstable. The connection's fine. So if we have a core group of lay leaders who are willing to walk point on this, it gets done. And part of that too is, you know, there's that video called Coming Home, which it's on YouTube. It's under Beau, B-E-A-U Schluep. I guess it's YouTube.
I found one that I posted. It was you at the wall.
That's not it.
I couldn't find.
No,
I
that's
couldn't
terrible.
get the
I'm
other
15
one.
pounds overweight. My hair's too
Yeah.
long.
We didn't care about that, but can you send me the link, because I searched for what you're talking about and couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'll get that. I'll get that to
Okay,
you.
if you send me that, I will make sure that I get it out.
Yeah. Okay.
John, I hate to go back to what Becky was talking about, but if our church decides to do this, will you be there in person or on Zoom to lead us like the first few times, and then we get the idea what we're doing and how we do it, and that's when we ask people if they want to be a facilitator or whatever, and maybe go out into the Doylestown, Norton, Barberton community and see if we can bring other people in. But I would feel more comfortable if you were there at the beginning, even though you're going to send us.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the way we've done it here in Northeast Ohio. Is if I'm not available, I do have people on our staff that can do that as well.
Right.
I've kind of been the voice in the face of Warrior's Journey Home, and yeah, I spent there were 3 sessions, I think, in Wadsworth at Trinity UCC. And yeah, because that's my short answer to your question. Yes.
Do you know the
Thank you.
names of the folks at Wadsworth? We have a relationship there.
Well, Peggy Hegbar is the facilitator, and she's been walking point on that for over 2 years now. Ed Barr sounds familiar. I don't know any of I've met them, but I can't remember their names.
Okay.
I think they had like a dozen or so, 10 to 12 people who are committed to it.
Wow.
All right, that'll get us started.
Yeah. Peggy. So I'll get the link to you. I've got another thing coming up here, so it'll get to you.
We appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you so much, John.
Welcome. Thank you.
We'll look for the material and do our part, reading the books, and then do you want to set a time to reconvene? Or are you going to send me a timeline, or what would you like to do? Do you want just the two of us to have a conversation in a couple of weeks, or how do you want to proceed?
Yeah. Yeah, I think next step would be, you and I will communicate with each other.
Okay.
I'll come up with a timeline. I'll talk to these other groups that maybe want to do the training and see what works best for them. I do have a Becky as part of War's Journey Home who can guide me through the Zoom class stuff. And if not, Gay, you're it.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll get you the material and also provide a reading list of books that are relevant. There's some tremendous stuff out here that will really be helpful. So
Great.
Good.
so let's do that. Let's you and I talk within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll add a timeline. That'll give you a chance to
Yeah.
look over some of the materials I'll be bringing. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
great. Good,
Yes.
great job. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Blessings,
All
everyone.
right. Have a
Take
blessed
care.
day.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. So anyway, it's a
Alright.
good question. But yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
it's a good comment. Yeah. So I will probably drop these things off to you because I don't want to have to pay the freight. So I'll drop
You
them
could,
off.
you know, you could drop them at my condo, which would be closer for you. I live
Where's
next
that?
to the nature realm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. You got an address? You want-
Yeah, it's 477 Hampton Ridge Drive. It's the street right after the nature realm as you come up the hill on
I
Smith.
know where you are. I know where you are. I just go up Smith Hill and